Aleph, Bet, Ret, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Chaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pei, Fet, Tzadik, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Sin, Taf. Now I think I've said enough.
Welcome to another lesson in our series From the Aleph Bet, a series for anyone of any age who wishes to learn how to read Hebrew and understand Hebrew, especially the Hebrew that's used in the experience of Judaism. I'm Mark Golub. Once again, thank you for joining us and thank you for letting us bring Hebrew into your home. And especially thank you for all the lovely emails you send me and all of us who help bring you this program. It is your encouragement that makes this such an exciting experience for all of us. One of the things that's always difficult about doing television is that you don't have an audience sitting right in front of you. I have Alex here, I have Jordan here, I have Alan here, but I don't have all of you with me. And so when you send me emails or in touch with me, it makes a big difference, and I thank you very, very much. Well, this is a very exciting lesson because on this lesson, I'm going to be able to complete the last little details having to do with what you need to know to be able to read and pronounce any Hebrew word at all. Any Hebrew word at all. You've already learned all the letters of the alphabet. You've already learned virtually every vowel. Last time we taught you the vowel Patach Yud that you see here. This vowel, of course, makes the sound I, as in the word hi there. And the Patach Yud makes the vowel I sound anytime it comes in a word, either inside a word or at the end of a word. Here you see the most important word in the Hebrew language with the Patach Yud. It is the word Chai. Very good. Chai means life. Mitsuyan. And here is a word where the Patach Yud is inside a word. This word is pronounced Laila. Mitsuyan. Laila. It means, of course, night. Very good. So the Patach Yud always makes an I sound. We also taught you last time that if you take the Kamatz Yud, it makes an I sound at the end of a word. For example, let's see this word here. Lifanai, Mitsuyan, before me, lifanai. But if it comes inside of a word, as here you see a Patach Yud followed by a Vav, the Patach sound does not change, it stays Ah, and therefore this word would be pronounced Lifanav, Mitsuyan. How about this word? Meaning my commandments. Mitzvotai, Mitsuyan. But if we add a Vav to it, and putting a Vav at the end of the word is like adding the English pronoun his to a noun. Therefore, this becomes his commandments, and it's pronounced Mitzvo Tav, Mitsuyan. Notice a Kamatz Yud does not make the I sound. If it does not come at the end of a word, it is simply Ah. There you have it, the Patach Yud, which is I all the time at the end of a word or inside a word. The Kamatz Yud is I at the end of a word, but inside a word it remains Ah. And those vowels leave us with only these two vowel sounds left to show you. Here's the first one. It's very easy. It's the Cholam, Cholam Malay, with a Yud after it. An O plus a Yud. What sound do you guess this would make? If you said Oi, you are correct. Oi is correct. Mitsuyan. By the way, if we put a bet in front of the vowel, it makes the English word boy, mitsuyan. That's how you'd say boy if you were writing the word in Hebrew characters. Here then is an actual Hebrew word with the oi vowel. Can you read this one syllable word? And the word is goy, mitsuyan, goy. By the way, goy is one of the misunderstood words in the Jewish tradition. The word goy actually means in Hebrew nation. It is a generic word meaning nation. Goy, mitsuyan. By the way, in the Torah, the Jewish people are referred to with the word goy, and this adjective as well, an adjective you know. Can you read this two-word phrase? Goy is the first word, and the second word is kadosh, mitsuyan, kadosh. And I hope you remember that kadosh means holy. Very, very good. And therefore, goy kadosh means a holy nation. And that is the phrase that is used for the Jewish people in the Torah. Jewish people are to be a goy kadosh, a holy nation or a holy people. And by the way, some of you know that the term goy also has come to refer to a non-Jewish person, so that many people hear the vernacular word goy and associate it with a non-Jew, as opposed to the goy kadosh of the Torah, which refers to the Jewish people. And over time, especially in times when the Jews have been persecuted, the phrase goy or the word goy has been used as a derogatory word to refer to people who tend to hurt the Jews, the non-Jewish nations which hurt the Jews. Goyim is the plural of goy, and goyim means nations. And so the Jewish people have used the term goyim or goy to refer to those nations of the world which, in times of anti-Semitism and persecution, have injured the Jewish people. But the word goy itself is a generic word that simply means nation, and the Jewish people are called in the Torah a goy kadosh. And there you see the oi vowel in Hebrew, the o plus the yud. And now the last Hebrew vowel, when you learn this vowel sound, you'll know all the vowel sounds in the Hebrew language. Take a look at this vowel. It is a shuruk plus a yud. What would you guess the sound of this vowel is? What do you think, Alex? Ui is correct. Ui is correct. This vowel sound, by the way, is probably the least used vowel sound in the entire Hebrew language. The shuruk with the yud, it's very rare. But here's an example of a word with the shuruk and the yud making the ui sound. Notice it has two vowels, the hirik under the shin, and then the ui vowel, the shuruk plus the yud at the end. How would you pronounce this two-syllable word? First syllable, she, and the second syllable, nui, mitsuyan. Put it together, she nui, mitsuyan. She nui, by the way, means change, and it refers, incidentally, to a political party in Israel that took the name Shinui as a party of change. And here's one more important Jewish word with the ui vowel. Take a look at it. Again, how many vowels? Two is correct. The hirik under the vav, and the shuruk plus the yud, the ui. First syllable, therefore, would be v, mitsuyan, vav plus a hirik. And then dui, mitsuyan. Put the word together, vidui, mitsuyan. And vidui is the Hebrew word for confession. which refers to a certain type of liturgy, especially used on Yom Kippur. The word vidui, confession. And there you see the shuruk plus the yud as the ui vowel. And that, my friends, is the very last vowel sound you need to learn to know all the vowel sounds in the Hebrew language. You now know all the vowel sounds. Alex, let's run through them real quickly, and we'll put them together with a silent Aleph. Here is the patach a, mitzuyan, and here is the kamat. It is also a in the Sephardic dialect we're studying here on from the Aleph Bet, the dialect used in the state of Israel. Here is one dot under a letter, the hirik e, mitzuyan, and if you add a yud to a hirik, it remains e, mitzuyan. Here we have two dots, a, the tsere. By the way, sometimes the tsere does make the e sound, as in a segol, but we've taught you simply to make it easier to learn that every time you see the tsere, it's the vowel a, as in the word say. And if you add a yud to the tsere, it definitely is a, mitzuyan. Three dots, the segol e, mitzuyan. And if you add a yud to a segol, it stays e, mitzuyan. Then we go to the cholam male, the cholam on top of a vav, is the vowel o, mitzuyan. If you take the vav away, make it a cholam chaser, it's still o, mitzuyan. And if we put the vav back up and add a yud, it's the vowel we just learned, oi, mitzuyan. And then if we take the vav and put the dot in the middle, it becomes a shuruk. It's the vowel u, mitzuyan. You can also make an u sound by writing three dots from left to right going down. It's the kubutz. It also makes the u sound, mitzuyan. And if we put the shuruk back up and add a yud to it, it's the vowel sound we just learned. It is the ui vowel sound, mitzuyan. And if we take a patach and add a yud to it, right, it's the vowel I all the time, in the middle or at the end of a word. And if we take a kamatz and add a yud to it, it is I at the end of a word, but it remains inside a word, mitzuyan. We've also taught you that sometimes a vowel sound can be added to a shva. And of course, a shva is the only set of dots which is never counted as a vowel. A shva is often silent, in which case it ends, or what's called technically closes, a syllable. If it comes at the beginning of a syllable, it is pronounced I, as in the word fish, but even when it's pronounced, it is never counted as a vowel. But you can take a pronounced shva and add a vowel sound to it to give it some body, some more weight. So if you put a patach next to a shva, the sound it makes is mitzuyan, but it's still never counted as a vowel. Technically, it's called a half vowel, but for our purposes, it's never counted as a vowel. And here we have a segol next to a pronounced shva. It makes the S sound, mitzuyan, just as a segol would, except again, it is not a vowel and would not be counted as a vowel, even though it makes the S sound. And here is one last wrinkle. Here you see a pronounced shva with a kamatz next to it. And lo and behold, the kamatz normally makes an sound, but if you put it next to a pronounced shva, the sound it makes is the same sound that the kamatz makes in Ashkenazic Hebrew. Here the kamatz makes an or sound, as in the word saw. I saw the bird begin to fly. Or, the AW sound. This is one of the only times the Kamatz retains the old Ashkenazic sound or. There's one other way in which the Kamatz retains that or sound, which again is a minor detail, but then you'll know everything about Hebrew. But right now, here are the three vowels next to a pronounced shva. The patach with the pronounced shva is a. The segol with the pronounced shva is e. The kamatz with the pronounced shva is or. In none of these cases are these vowels. These are all pronounced shvas with a little more body to them. And remember, every shva, even if it is pronounced, even if it has a vowel next to it, to give the pronounced shva a little more body or oomph, is never counted as a vowel. And remember, it's important because if you count the number of vowels in a Hebrew word, you know how many syllables are in a Hebrew word. There's always a one-to-one correlation between vowels and syllables in a Hebrew word. If there's one vowel, there's one syllable, even if there's a pronounced shva in the word, as in this word here. Do you remember how to pronounce this word? Shema is correct, which means to hear or listen, but it only has one vowel, the patach under the mem. The shva under the shin is not pronounced as a vowel, and therefore Shema is a one-syllable word in the Hebrew language. But let me show you one Hebrew word where the segol is added to the pronounced shva. It's called a chataf segol. Take a look at this word where the sound under the Aleph is made by a pronounced shva with a segol next to it. How many vowels are in this word? If you said 3, you are correct. First syllable is elo, mitsuyan. The first syllable is not because you'd have no vowel in that syllable. The chataf segol is not a vowel. It is a shva, pronounced shva with a little more body added to it. Therefore, the first vowel of this syllable is the cholam chaser, the O after the lamed, and the first syllable is elo, mitsuyan, elo. Second syllable, hey is correct. The tsere plus the yud under the hey. Hey is correct. Third syllable, nu, mitsuyan. And you put the word together, you get Eloheinu, mitsuyan, Eloheinu, which means our God. The nu syllable at the end of a Hebrew noun always is the first person plural pronoun, our. So Eloheinu is our God. But what's important in this word to notice is that under the Aleph, you have a pronounced shva, which is given a little bit more body by adding the segol to it, and the first syllable becomes Elo, Eloheinu, mitsuyan. Which brings us now to our final work with the shva. I told you when we began our study together, the key to being able to pronounce any Hebrew word you see is knowing how the shva operates. The shva is never counted as a vowel. Sometimes it's silent, sometimes it's pronounced. A pronounced shva always begins or opens a Hebrew syllable. A silent shva always ends or closes a Hebrew syllable, and what a silent shva does is simply extend a syllable by one additional letter, the letter over the silent shva. And therefore you take any letter over a silent shva and add it to the preceding letter and vowel to complete a syllable. And what you must be able to do at any time is look at a word and determine which shvas are pronounced, meaning they begin a syllable, and which shvas are silent, which mean they end the syllable. And if you can determine which shvas begin and which shvas end the syllable, there's no Hebrew word you can't look at and pronounce, no matter how complicated, no matter how long. The key is knowing whether a shva is pronounced or whether it's silent. And in general, all shvas are silent unless one of the following situations occur. And I want to be honest with you. Technically, if you were a very strict grammarian, if you studied everything about Hebrew grammar, there are wrinkles to which shvas are pronounced and which are silent. I'm going to give you the 3 most common rules that will tell you when you pronounce a shva. And if you simply use these 3 rules to pronounce shvas, even if technically there's a shva that should be pronounced, it isn't so important that you should worry about. Later on, you can learn the very, very tricky nuances to when every shva is pronounced. But I want to give you the 3 most important circumstances in which a shva is pronounced. It'll help you pronounce virtually every Hebrew word you see. And the key comes back to the overall rule: a pronounced shva begins a syllable. So we're looking for the beginning of syllables. Wherever a syllable begins, if a shva is there, it is pronounced. Here are the 3 rules that will teach you 90% of when you pronounce a shva. Rule number 1 you already know. A shva is pronounced if it comes under the first letter of a Hebrew word. Under the first letter of a Hebrew word, the shva is pronounced. And that's sort of obvious because obviously the first letter of a Hebrew word begins the first syllable of that word. So if you see a shva under the first letter of a word, it is pronounced. Let's come back to the same word we showed you a moment ago. Shema, which again means to hear or listen. And notice the shva under the shin is under the first letter of the word, mitsuyan. So you know right away it opens the syllable, it begins the syllable, and therefore the shva is pronounced I, as in the word fish, and the word is shema. 1 syllable, shema, mitsuyan. Second rule: if you ever see 2 shvas in a row, the second shva is always pronounced. You always pronounce the second of 2 shvas in a row. And that also is sort of obvious. The first shva ends a syllable, and therefore the next letter with a shva must begin the following syllable. So you always divide a Hebrew word between 2 shvas. If you ever see 2 shvas in a row, the first shva must be silent, ending a syllable. The second shva must be pronounced, beginning the succeeding syllable. And in your mind, you can draw a line between the letters with the 2 shvas under them. A Hebrew word is always divided between 2 shvas in a row. Sort of like in English where we divide words between 2 consonants. In Hebrew, you always divide a word between 2 shvas. The second of 2 shvas is always pronounced. Let me give you an example. How many vowels in this word? 2 is correct. The patach under the nun and the kamatz in the final chaf. And you have 2 shvas in a row. 1 shva under the fei, 1 shva under the shin. The second shva must be pronounced. If we were to draw a line between the 2 syllables of this word, it would be between the fei and the shin, between the 2 shvas, and therefore the first syllable is naf, mitsuyan, and the second syllable is shecha, mitsuyan. The shva under the shin is pronounced shecha, mitsuyan. The word together is nafshecha, mitsuyan. By the way, the word nefesh is the word soul in Hebrew. And if you add a final chaf to a noun in Hebrew, it's like adding the second person possessive pronoun, your. Whenever you add chaf to a noun, it's like adding the word your in English, and therefore nafshecha becomes your soul. Mitsuyan, nafshecha. And the shva is pronounced under the shin because it's the second of two in a row. So there you have the first two rules. You pronounce a shva under the first letter of a word. You pronounce the second of two shvas in a row. Here's the third rule for when you do pronounce the shva. A shva is always pronounced under a dagesh. Any letter with a dagesh in it, pronounce the shva under it. By the way, for those who care, the reason the shva is pronounced under a dagesh is that a dagesh actually is a shorthand way of doubling a Hebrew letter. Anytime you see a dagesh in a word, in ancient Hebrew it was a way to double that letter. And if the letter is doubled, it's like doubling the shva under it. And you've already learned if there are two shvas in a row, the second is always pronounced. And therefore any letter with a dagesh in it has in effect both a silent and a pronounced shva. And therefore any shva under a dagesh is pronounced. Let me give you an example. Here you see a two-vowel word, the patach under the bet, the kamatz under the mem, and you see a zayin as the second letter of this word with a dagesh inside the zayin, and under the zayin is a shva. This tells you right away that the shva under the zayin with a dagesh is pronounced. And if the shva is pronounced, it means the zayin begins a new syllable. Therefore, in this two-syllable word, where would you draw the line between the two Hebrew syllables? If you drew the line after the bet and before the zayin, you are correct, because the zayin has a pronounced shva, and a pronounced shva always begins a syllable. Therefore, the first syllable of this word is ba, mitsuyan, simply ba. And the rest of the word is zeman, mitsuyan, zeman. And the word together is bazeman, bazeman, mitsuyan. Zman means season or time, but very often it has the sense of at a season. And ba as a prefix means in the or at the, and therefore when you say bazeman, it means at the season or in the season. Bazeman. And you probably know the phrase bazeman hazeh, which is part of a number of blessings. Bazeman hazeh, at this season. The word zeh meaning this. Bazman hazeh. But the important thing to see here is that the zayin has a dagesh in it, and if a shva comes under a letter with a dagesh, that shva is pronounced. Very often, a letter will have a dagesh in it at the beginning of a word, and the shva under it is pronounced for two reasons. It's at the beginning of a word, and because it's under a letter with a dagesh in it. For example, how many vowels in this word? One is correct. The kamatz under the chaf, the shva under the bet is under the first letter of a word. It's also under a letter with a dagesh, and therefore it is pronounced bichol. One syllable, bichol. Bichol. And the word kol means all in Hebrew. Bet as a prefix again means in or with. Here, bichol is normally translated with all. Bichol. And if you add bichol to a word we've already learned, bichol nafshecha, it means with all your soul. Bichol nafshecha. And let me show you one last piece of Hebrew here. If we take the shuruk and put it in front of bechol, I already told you it's like adding the word and in front of a word. Anytime you add the vav in front of a word, whether it has a kamatz under it, or a patach under it, or a shva under it, or a dot inside it to make it a shuruk, it's like adding the English word and. And how would you pronounce this word now? Is the shva under the vet pronounced or silent? Hopefully you'll say it is pronounced, because it is the first letter of the word with all. Bechol or vichol, the exact same word. And therefore, as we pronounce this word, u vichol, the u stands alone as the word and. The vet now becomes the first letter of the word with all, and therefore the shva under the vet remains pronounced. And in this entire phrase, we would read, uvechol nafshecha, and with all your soul. And there you have it, the rules for how you read the shva. A shva is pronounced if it's under the first letter of a word, if it's the second of two in a row, if it comes under a letter with a dagesh. It begins a syllable, and therefore the shva is pronounced. And what we're going to do in subsequent lessons is take a look at various Hebrew words and see if you can look at those words and tell right away whether the shva is pronounced or silent, whether the shva begins a syllable or ends a syllable. And in those cases, you'll be able to read virtually every Hebrew word you see. I hope you enjoyed that lesson of From the Aleph Bet. And remember, you can download lesson sheets and worksheets for every lesson of this series free of charge. Just visit the JBS website homepage at jbstv.org and click on the program icon for From the Aleph Bet. And then click on the very first option, From the Aleph Bet Hebrew Study Sheets. And for anyone who can send JBS a tax-deductible donation of $180 or more, we'll be pleased to send you the entire 20-program Series 1 of From the Aleph Bet on DVD, complete with a CD of lesson sheets and worksheets. JBS, expanding Jewish understanding, celebrating all things Jewish. Be well, my friends.
Aleph, Bet, Ret, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Chaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pei, Fet, Tzadik, Kuf, Reish, Shin, Sin, Taf. Now I think I've said enough.